Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, this is Redberryweo here, and welcome back to another Civil Patrol video. But in today's video, it's a little bit different. I'm clearly in a different location. Well, sort of, I guess I'm in the same room. I'm just in a different spot in the room, so that's exciting. But today, I'm going to go over how to iron, because it's the ultimate ironing party. Today, I will be showing you a ironed uniform and a not yet ironed uniform, and I will be ironing my blues today. So, looky here. Here's a nice shirt, right? It's a little bit wrinkly. The back's kind of wrinkly, right? So we're going to take care of that. I'm going to show you what it's going to look like. Let's see here. I got a few hangers here. So a few things that we want to keep in mind when we're ironing our shirt is that it should be the correct temperature. And when you look, either on the inside of the shirt or on the outside of the shirt, it will have a white tag. Please read this white tag before you do anything. One of the biggest things that can ruin your shirt, if the temperature is too hot, it will melt your shirt. And it depending on what the material it is, it could either burn or melt. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my shirt up here. And I'm going to look here and look at this tag. And so, if we look at our tag here, it says that iron at moderate or synthetic material heat setting. Okay, so we've got our heat setting on for the iron. So it's currently set to synthetics, if you can see that here. Woohoo! Yep, right here. So that's where it's lined up right now. And you should not need water because this is synthetic. If you have wool pants, then you'll need to put it on the wool setting, but I haven't covered pants yet. But that's one thing. Another thing is the collar can be a little bit tricky. Sometimes there's a little plastic tab in this collar piece, and so then when you're pressing down, just make sure that you press down this section below this, okay? So then you have that kind of like double bump rather than just like a single bump. If you wear a tie and you only wear a tie or you only wear a tie tab, that top button is always going to be done and you don't need to worry about pressing down the collar. But for me and my purposes, I normally press this down, and then whenever I need to have it buttoned up, then I can button it up just fine. But to press down, you'll have to push down really hard with the iron, and I will show you that here shortly. I will just say that like the back of this shirt is flat, right? The shoulders are creased. We're going to be doing that together. Okay? The collar is also pressed flat so that it, like on its own, it won't be sticking out. Right now with this shirt, since I had just washed it, this shirt's collar is like all over the place. So if you look in comparison and I lay them down flat, this collar is flat and then this one's like sticking up on its own, and we want to push it down flat too. Okay, so again, when you have the little plastic things in the collar, they can be a little tricky to work with, and they can be very annoying, especially when you're pinning in insignia as a cadet airman or NCO. So that's another thing to look forward to when you're doing your blues, but that's going to be for a later time. So since this is the shirt that's already done, I'm going to put this back on the hanger and put it to the side. Okay guys, so now for the exciting part. I typically unbutton the entire shirt. If it's partially buttoned, then it's good to undo, because I'm going to first start with the back. So let's go all the way down the shirt. Do-do-do, do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do. And so I looked at the tag for my other shirt. Before I do this one, I'm just going to verify. We're going to verify here with this tag. What does this pretty tag say? Okay, very cool. So it says press at moderate heat setting, and the moderate heat setting is already selected. That's at the synthetic setting. So a few safety tips before we actually start ironing. This, once it's plugged in, is super duper hot. And I recommend ironing on a flat tile surface if you can, like a hard surface, as opposed to ironing on a carpet surface, because you don't want to ruin your carpet and you don't want bad things to happen on your carpet. So do not touch the hot side of the iron, please. Do not. I'm watching you. Please do not. So now we're going to take our shirt. I'm going to move the iron briefly over here. Always make sure you keep an eye on your iron, and when you're not using it, always unplug it. So I guess I'm gonna first start it with, I'm using the fat end of my ironing board here. I've got the small end over there. That's gonna be a problem. I did not think this through. Okay, so now I have reoriented my wonderful ironing board here because I want the thin end to be available, and I'm currently using the other end for my microphone and for another camera. So now that I've had the chance to reset this up, we're gonna put our shirt down. So I'm gonna move my iron over here just for a second and put this down flat, and so that you can see that the neck is up here towards the thin end, and then the rest is over here. I want to make sure that it's entirely flat on the board before I start doing that, or else you're going to add some creases to your shirt. So I'm just laying this flat, and so I'm going to show you here that you can see quite a few wrinkles in the back of this shirt. And it's not great, but it's something. So I'm going to take my iron and I'm going to start pressing flat. Now, another safety tip about when you're using an iron, you want to make sure that you are not holding it in the same spot for too long. Now, if there are some major creases, you can always push down a little bit, and I do a little bit of a twisty motion to try to press that out, but just make sure you are not creating bubbles or little creases on here. So I'm constantly checking to make sure that it's flat. Checking that it's flat and pushing down. Isn't this exciting? This is so much fun. Yes. And I'm pulling it a little bit taut on this side with my hand, just so that it kind of pulls the shirt a little bit tighter. Okay, so now I can show you again. It's a nice close-up view here. So if you remember that before and that after, that's what it looks like now. Okay, so now that we've basically finished the main back part of the shirt, I'm going to rotate it so that I just see the one front side of the shirt, making sure that it's laying flat. Okay, and then we're going to do this side now. Now I do have some weird creasing right here on the edge of my shirt over here. You can see it on this camera. I'm going to try to press that out, but it might be a manufacturing error. So I'm also going to rotate back a little bit because I just finished this bottom part of the top, but I haven't done the rest of it. So I'm just going to do like the underneath the sleeve portion just a little bit and flatten that. But make sure you're keeping the fabric taut, just a little bit tight, so that it doesn't have those wrinkles forming. So I'm going to rotate just a little bit more so that we're covering the rest of the back, because I did the main part of the back, but I didn't do the whole thing. So I'm just getting the stuff underneath the armpits right now. And right now I'm also doing behind the shoulder. Okay, so looking here, I'm going to inspect a little bit. So if I look here, I've done the bottom part of the shirt and it looks great, but the sleeve does not. Sleeve looks kind of awful because this was previously, it had an insignia on it, and so it's pressed, like the shoulder is pressed, but it has like a ghost print of an old insignia that used to be on here, and it might be a little hard to see, but you can see that it's a little bit wrinkly and it has like the shape of it from before, so it doesn't look great. So we're going to try to take care of that. So I'm going to hold my shirt flat. I'm going to try to make sure that I also don't wrinkle the stuff that I've already ironed. So I'm going to try to be consistent and nice to it. The other side of the shirt I don't care about yet because I haven't gotten to it. But I'm going to do this sleeve here and try to flatten that out. Now I'm going to flip over the shirt, try to get the other side, and just make it as flat as I can. Be very careful not to burn your fingers. Please don't burn your fingers. But never hold the iron still in one place. That's a huge thing. Do not hold the iron in one place. That is always bad. And see, ironing always reminds me of those, like, I think they were called perler beads, where you would have like a little bucket of the beads and then you'd iron them together. And if you have a local craft store, you can probably find perler beads. They're pretty cheap. And they're lots of fun. You can do different patterns. You can make Christmas ornaments out of them. They're very fun for all ages. Hashtag not sponsored by perler beads, but still, they're a lot of fun. How's that looking? So, the front side actually looks pretty decent. It used to have, like, you can see the ghost image of where the insignia was before, like right along here. Like, there had to be some seam ripping done here, and so there are a few holes. But the thing itself is mostly gone. There's a little bit of creasing still right here from when the patch was there, so I'm going to try to do a little bit more with it. On my own, of course. Also, another pro tip, if you have a shirt that already has creases in it, try to make sure that they are correct first before ironing on them again. It is a little difficult to get rid of creases, but it's better to not reinforce the crease and try to press out the old one. Though it will take time, it's better to make sure that it's right instead of continuously be wrong. At least for the shoulders. Like if the crease were over here, for example, and it was a diagonal between here and here, that would be wrong. Because you've got a seam down here at the bottom of the sleeve, and you want to make sure that the seam is on the very bottom, and then you hold the sleeve at the furthest point that you can, pull it tight, and then make the crease there. So going back to that front side of the sleeve, or going back to the front side of the t-shirt, I did the bottom part and it looks pretty good, but I have not done the part at the top. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Making sure first that it's laid flat along the board, and that this inner piece, like right behind where the buttonholes are, that lays flat in addition to the shirt front side. So guys, we did the back of our shirt. The bottom of it got ironed, so all of those weird creases are gone. The front side of the shirt, I have done the bottom of it right here, and I've also done a bit of focus on the sleeve, right? Because, well, there used to be a patch here, and so I ironed it down as much as I could, and so you can see the before and after. And now I'm going to make sure that I do the front side of my shirt on this side. So this is the wearer's left or your right. And a fun thing about shirts that have a pocket on the front is that it's got two little creases in the middle. When you're ironing, do not disturb these creases. Just keep it flat and just keep it flat. Don't go side to side on top of it, or else it could ruin those nice creases and you'd have to redo them. So just make sure you think about that if you have pockets on your shirt. Because I'm doing an up and down motion like this, and not going forward and back on top of those creases. And if I ever see some wrinkles somewhere else on the shirt, I always go back and just briefly fix them and then continue what I was doing. So let's say that the pocket opening, this section right here is wrinkly. It's not for me, but if it was, you can always unbutton it and then try to iron it down on its own like this on your ironing board and press it flat like that. However, since I don't need to do that, I'm not going to do that. Most times that does not happen. That's pretty uncommon. Unless you don't take care of your shirt and you just throw it on the floor after you're done wearing it every time, which I would not recommend, and that just costs more time at the end of the day for you. So now I'm actually going to go on to the hardest part, which is the collar. So why is the collar the hardest part? As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, well, when you are wearing your shirt, you want to try to have the collar lay flat. So, instead of it just kind of sticking up like this, we want it to try to be more flat. So, we're going to go ahead and try to flatten this out a bit. Now, if you've got a collar that has more support in it, and it sticks up like mine, where it's got like the collar up and it's got like some kind of support system on the inside, you should still try to iron down the collar a little bit. So, the angle that you're looking for is about where the top of the first button is. So it'll look a bit like that, so you've got a double bump. So let's do it. I'm first going to check to make sure the back of my shirt is flat on the table because I already ironed it and I don't really want to have to iron it again by accidentally inducing more wrinkles. So I'm just going to make sure that it's laid flat. And now we're going to do it. So be very careful not to burn your fingers here. And you'll push down on this collar until it's basically set. So then, like, if I were to put this shirt on and I look at the collar here, the collar should not be sticking up as much as it normally does. And it should be more like this. Okay, so this side is the one that I had ironed. This one is not. So you can see this one is more flat than this one. Now, it does not necessarily need to be completely flat, but there should be at least a little bit of a crease that helps it keep its shape instead of just popping up so much. Because what a shirt should not look like is just like as if it were buttoned together, even though it's not, and you're not wearing a tie or a tie tab. So you can see this before and after here. This side is the one that I had ironed first. It's not entirely done. It's still in the process, but I have done the sleeve. I did the sleeve and flattened it out. It still has a little bit of marking on it. But then as I look at the collar is nicely pressed. It's got the little crease forming here, and I'd probably press that down a little bit more. And then the rest of the front of the shirt is basically wrinkleless. Now, if I look at the other side, I got a bunch of wrinkles. This has some weird creasing going on, and that would require some additional work. But overall, our shirt is halfway done, and so I'm going to move on to the pants now and talk a little bit about pants and tips and tricks for ironing your pants. But that's just a quick overview of how you would do your shirt. And if you have any questions about approaches, well, I can always answer them. Ironing is pretty straightforward. Just if you're not comfortable with ironing, the best way to get comfortable with it is through a little bit of practice. And if you are someone who's never used an iron before, always ask someone to help you learn about your personal iron. Like, I've had my iron for a few years now. I know how it works. I know the settings and everything. And if you're not familiar with yours and someone else in your family is, then always ask them and say, hey, I would like to iron my uniform. Yay, taking initiative. That's a good thing to know how to do, because that's a life skill that you could use when you are going off into the professional world and you need to wear your business attire and you want to iron it without sending it to the dry cleaners. Now, if you have a dress coat that goes over this shirt, I have one right here, just because of the materials that go into these dress coats, please just dry clean it if it needs to be cleaned. It would probably not end well if you tried to clean it, specifically because of the interior, like the lining, in addition to like how I think there's like a bit of a shoulder pad here, or at least like some padding in the shoulders. And you want to make sure that you keep your coat clean and nice for as long as you can. And if you don't dry clean it, then you could potentially destroy it, and they're not the cheapest thing. So just dry clean it occasionally, and if there's like a stain on it, then you can go ahead and do that, but just be careful with your Class A coat. So we're going to do our pants now. Pants are exciting. Pants are great, but they can also be, the lighting. The sun is changing angles and it blinds me sometimes. So pants are a little bit tricky sometimes, but I'm going to show you how I do pants, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Yay! So when you have your blues pants, don't hang them this way. Don't hang them this way. This way, bad. It's bad. You know why? Because if you've got creases on your pants and you hang them this way, where's the crease? The crease is on the front of the leg. So when you're hanging your pants, hey, man, I'm kind of disappointed that they were hung that way. When you're hanging your pants, they should be like this, where the crease is in the front and in the back. And then you might do something where you fold it like this on the front and the back and zip it up. And then have clips right here. An alternative way of doing it is where you've got like a hanger that's strong enough with like maybe a piece of cardboard around it in the middle. And then you fold it over like that. And then you maintain the creases. Don't destroy your creases. Don't be bad. That's why I hate these hangers, because it's too wide in order to do it the correct way. Or maybe it's not with this pair of pants. But hang it this way so you don't ruin the creases on your pants and you maintain their integrity. Please. That's all I ask. Maintain your crease integrity. So let's go ahead and iron our pants then, shall we? So, depending on what material your pants are made out of, you either need to get them taken to the dry cleaner, or you can clean them at home. If they're wool, then you should get them dry cleaned, and if they are synthetic, then you can always clean them at home in your own washer dryer and do it that way. So, we're going to do the pants. The reason why I have this thin end here is so that I can stick the pants around it. If I had the big, thick end, I would not be able to do that with the pants. So I'm going to go ahead and iron it. And also when you check your tag, make sure that it's on the right heat setting. Always check to make sure it's on the right heat setting. If it's too hot, that can cause problems. So I have done this side of the leg, and the outside is now flattened out. So I'm going to take it off of the ironing board and now turn it around and just have it so that I have one leg on the board. And this is where using the big end of the board would be helpful. I'm not going to rotate my board again because it's very annoying to do, but I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to make sure that the leg is laid flat. Make sure that I'm following the correct crease. If the crease is not like at the furthest front and back ends of the pant leg, well, remember, for regulations, the back should be a little bit lower than the front as well. So just make sure that the two seams on the inside and the outside of the leg are lined up, and then pull it tight. I like to pull whatever I'm ironing a little bit tighter, just so that I don't have additional creases form when I'm pushing the iron. Okay, that part of the leg is good. And I'm going to move it down just a little bit more. And make sure that the front side and the back side are both flat and lined up, or else that can be very annoying afterwards. So now I'm going to check the other side of my pant leg just to make sure that it's set and ready to go. So there are still a few wrinkles on this side because the heat doesn't always travel all the way through. So I'm going to really make sure that the whole leg is flat, because if it's not, then you will create some extra wrinkles and creases on the other side of your leg. I'm making sure that I'm getting rid of these wrinkles on both sides of the leg. And that's basically almost done, to be honest. Looking at it, I've got my crease on the front, I've got my crease in the back, and the leg is now flat. So I don't really see any wrinkles now. There might be like one or two. It's not perfect, but it's nicely ironed for now. So here is the difference between my ironed pant leg and the not ironed pant leg. So you can kind of see that the one that is ironed is laying more flat, and that it's got a nice strong crease on the side. But on this one, the crease isn't nearly as strong. It feels like a little bit more open in terms of the material, and it's got some wrinkles here and there. That pretty much summarizes everything with pants. It's a fairly simple process, and then when you get to the back side, I would just recommend putting it along here, and then you can iron that flat. Try not to hit the crease. Just do like the butt portion right here, and then put it on the other leg, do the other side, and you can always rotate around the leg and iron it that way. But that's a pretty straightforward approach to doing your pants. So if you're ever cleaning your cover, this says dry clean only on the inside. That's what it says on the label. Right here, it says dry clean only. So make sure that you read every single label on your clothes to make sure you know how to properly take care of it. And then it also says pressing iron temperature with steam shall be 325 Fahrenheit plus or minus 6 degrees Fahrenheit, or use wool setting with steam. So I can briefly show you how to do that. Make sure you take off the pieces of metal on your cover. So when you're doing your cover, you could probably just put it at the edge of your ironing board, kind of like what I've done here, where you open it up and then you put it along the inside right here. You could also just lay it flat and try to iron it that way, but it doesn't do it as evenly. So I recommend opening up your cover so that it's open, and then putting it around the edge of the board like this, and then ironing it flat if it's wrinkly. I have never ironed my cover. Maybe I was supposed to when I was younger. I didn't iron it. But that is a summary of ironing for uniform items. So, one may ask, wait, but what about ABUs? The nice thing about ABUs is that they aren't required to be ironed. When we were wearing BDUs, we were required to iron those because they would get wrinkly so easily, and they just didn't look great if they weren't ironed. Now with ABUs, if they aren't ironed, they still look perfectly fine. And for the most part, if you just take it out of the dryer immediately and hang it up, it doesn't really have wrinkles in it, which is great. So I'm going to turn off my iron now for safety and unplug it just really briefly. So guys, that was your little ironing party. I hope that was useful. If you found it to be useful, I appreciate thumbs ups or comments on feedback on anything else that you have questions on. Someone had asked for me to talk about ironing a little bit, including the cover. So there you go. And I had fun putting this video together for you guys. So just let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and that is all, folks. Until next time, toodles.